Dear Samaha, we are live. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us today for this session of Climate Action and Sustainability Department, organized under Women Ascension. My name is Smaha Saher, and as Assistant Head of Women Ascension Climate Action and Sustainability Department, I welcome you all to this panel talk on the topic of women as leaders understanding the climate and gender connection. Um, as we all know that climate change affects everyone. It's not gender related, but research shows that its impact on is unique and often it impacts women in harsher ways, especially in vulnerable communities. At the same time, women consistently play a key role in building resilience, supporting families, and leading practical climate solutions at the community level. Today's session brings together a panel of experts whose work reflect their reality. Through their research, advocacy, and on ground action, they highlight why gender must be a part of every climate conversation and every sustainable solution. Today, we are joined by an aspiring group of speakers for our panel talk, and I'd like to begin this session by introducing Sabia Khan. Miss Sabia Khan brings over 16 years of experience as an educationist, trainer, and climate advocate. She has worked across diverse leadership roles in education sector and beyond education. Sabia is an active climate activist working with organizations such as Skillistan, Eco Friends, and Noble Global. Her work consistently highlights how social structures, community resilience, and environmental challenges intersect at many levels. Today, Sabia will be sharing her insights on the critical connection between gender and climate change, exploring how women are proportionately affected and how empowering them is essential for climate resilience. Sabia Khan, thank you for joining us today. We are excited to learn from your insights. The floor is yours. Let's begin the meaningful conversation.
Thank you so very much, Zoha, for such a powerful introduction, first of all. And thank you so very much for having me here today. Basically, when I started working over climate and in the climate space, I realized a fact that whether the community is quite privileged, whether the community is developed or underdeveloped, there are certain factors where climate action and the climate space is not neutral for both of the genders, and it is gender biased. Then I got an exposure with the different people from different communities, catering different needs of people. And then I realized that really women are the one who are getting more affected by many of the climate actions. And there are many different ways. They cannot play their part properly, even though they are trying hard to be the part of this whole space, but their depiction is not inaccurate. So we have been talking on this, but still there is a lot of more discussion can be done. So we'll take the start with this today. Climate change is not gender neutral, and it is true that it's not gender neutral. We have been seeing that there are a lot of catastrophes happening everywhere, and when it comes about specifically the underdeveloped countries or the developing countries, we see that the women, they have to suffer a lot. For example, they cannot move from one place to another place until and unless they are not accompanied by any of the male members. Then there are a few of the factors impacting, just like there are certain people, those who are following religion more, their religion is not allowing them to let the female move, you know, with the males. And there are a lot of more other things. Then the female, they are being given the charge to take care of the children alone, so they have to see children as well. So they are not here to just save themselves. They have to save the whole family and the children too, those who are quite vulnerable in such situations. So there are many things they have been facing. And females, as they don't have the liberty of doing a lot of things, they cannot take the decisions timely, they are not well aware, and they don't have the realization of their self-worth, so they are not doing in accordance to that. So here I come. Disproportionate impact. Women and girls face harsher consequences due to existing social, economic, and cultural inequalities, amplifying their vulnerability. Yes, we are we are witnessing this, that the females, wherever it comes about females, they are being underpaid, they are being undervalued, their efforts are being overlooked, and there are many other factors too, and same goes when it comes about the climate action as well. And we know that 158 million women and girls, they'll be facing even more poverty, because of the climate action. When there'll be rapid changes, men, they can move from one place to another place freely, and they can have the exposure of many other things. But on the other hand, on the contrary, women are the one who are going to face a lot of setback, because they'll be the one who won't be earning by themselves. They would be dependent over the males for many of the things, and ultimately they'll be facing harsh consequences of this. And then we know that 80% of those displaced by climate change are women and girls, facing increased dangers of violence and destitute. What happens, that when it comes about the frustration in the whole environment just because of some catastrophe, epidemic, or anything, that is being released over the women, because they are being considered weaker, though they are not, but still. So they are the one who have been given the side of cushion, where a man can release all the frustration. So the violence and all these things, they get enhanced with any of the climate change that comes up with. We'll be moving next. When it comes about the environmental stewards and food producers, we have seen that the women, they are doing a lot of good effort. They save the things well, they recycle the things well. You must have seen the examples of your mothers too at home, and even our daughters. They are so confined towards keeping the things safer. So that comes that how much they are good towards climate and the environment, but still their efforts, they are being overlooked. And if in case we'll be giving them the complete charge of the land, the complete charge of the complete charge of the yields, we can have even more products out of that. But still, we are not providing them, considering them that these are the weaker ones and they cannot do something more. So this gender biasness, that is impacting the role of women so much in climate spaces. We'll be moving further. See, when it comes about heavy burden of climate impact of women, we know that the women, they have been working as the unpaid labor for so long. They have to do the work in the morning. When they are moving outside, they have to do the chores at home as well. On the contrary, males, once they step out, they are done with the work and they do not contribute into the house chores. So that burdenizes the women even more, and they have to face a lot of tension for that too. And then high mortality rates, as women, they are the childbearers too, and they have many other more diseases just because of the extra efforts they are putting in, and they are quite restless in their lives for so long. So it's about 14 times more likely to die in such climate related disasters. And one thing again, as they cannot move, as they cannot rescue themselves, they are unaware of all the situations, and they are not familiar with all the circumstances they can face afterwards, because we have always been saying towards our males, as they are the one who are going to save us, they are the saviors. So females, they never get themselves prepared for such situation by themselves. So when it comes about disasters, there are more chances of the females to get impacted by those. And then escalated violence once again, when it comes about the social anxiety, when it comes about any of the frustration, women, they get targeted easily because they have no other way out. Next, please. There are many of the women who have been telling their stories. They are Nurun Nahar from Bangladesh, we have Bolivia, and then we have Lojan from Saudi Arabia. They had narrated their stories, and they are the real stories. If in case we are going to have time next time, we'll be just explaining that even more. And then we'll be realizing, yes, women, they are playing the part, but still, they are getting impacted so really badly in climate spaces that they should be given even more chances to speak. They should be given more chances to show themselves and to produce any of the impact. Next, please. We'll be moving towards the advocacy gap. Women underrepresented in decision making. Next slide. See, in decision making, when it comes about the decision making, women hold only 27% of legislative seats. They are not being given the chance to show up. They're not being given the chance to speak up, right? Because there are all the males there, and they feel like the males, because they are exposed to many of the other experiences too, they can have better decision making. So here we get really very less representation when it comes about the climate space. Then stronger advocacy. Whenever women they try to raise their voices, we are not listened that way we should be. There are many of the factors. The people they do not pay any of the hearing, they do not pay any of the heat towards us. So ultimately, we have to confine ourselves within us, and then we stop just raising our voices. And then we need to amplify our voice. And how will we amplifying our voice? By uniting ourselves. We'll have to make it sure that all the women on all the spaces, on all the podiums, they have to unite themselves. Either they are working in the one man organization, either they are working in a multi-millionaire organization, wherever they are working, they have to unite the other females all together and show that yes, they can do a lot of things when it comes about the climate space. Because when we are women, when we are mothers, when we are sisters, when we are wives, we are doing a lot more things than men. We are multifarious, we have a lot of strength, we can carry a child, we can give birth to the child, and then we have to come back to the chores as well. So carrying a lot of things all together, giving us more strength. So this is the time that we have to realize our strength, and then being females, we have to raise our voices so that we may have a larger impact over the climate spaces, and we would be given more chances to show up more. We would be given more chances to advocate more, and there should be more seats released for the women to represent from each and every country, so that we are not be getting any of the lesser chances as compared to men, and we'll be providing our best towards the society in all. So that's all about me. Thank you. I was given the chance for such a time, and I hope that I'm completely in that time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Abia Khan. Um, you're absolutely right that it's high time we realize our strengths and work on those and give our and through our strengths we give back to the world and work for our climate. Next, we have joining from Uganda, Mr. Ekisa, a young educator and passionate advocate for sustainable development, currently pursuing a bachelor's in Bachelor of Science in Education at Gulu University. He stands out as a student leader committed to community transformation. He also serves as the president of United Nations Association, and where he leads grassroots initiatives aligned with SDGs. He is a strong supporter of women's empowerment, especially in STEM. Akisa has also co-led impactful projects such as Teach Each initiative under the Millennium Fellowship, reaching about 300 learners. He is going to discuss on the topic of gender responsive climate education, which I think is very much needed in today's time. Um, Mr. Esika, thank you for joining us. Over to you now.
All right, thank you so much. So it's a great pleasure for me to be joining the community of MENA session in tackling this particular important topic. I want to tender in my apology that I'm not able to put on my screen just because I'm not in the best environment. I'm still in sort of in the out, but I will do well to start off my presentation now. So ideally, we've got a very great background from the first speaker to understand that climate change is totally not gender neutral. The impacts on the male and female are ideally disproportionate, and in any case, we are looking at SDG 5, SDG 13, and SDG 17. And climate change SDG 13 is not achievable without SDG 5 and SDG 15. And in being able to achieve that, education becomes a center that becomes a major focus for us to look at. And so gender responsive climate education is to incorporate the gender lens vulnerabilities in the content and in the curricula and in the development of resilience towards climate change. And so that is a very, very important aspect, that if gender responsive climate education is not reached, then we are at the very danger of perpetuating the inequalities that have existed back then. And these very inequalities mean that if the vulnerabilities of a woman are left behind, especially in the face of climate change, which they are much more affected, then we are actually counterproductive in being able to achieve that end. So the global inequalities are quite evident in this case. And so we'll just have a statistical look at that. Women hold only 32% of the full-time jobs in global renewable energy workspace, and that is information from IRENA. So what is the implication of that, of having only 32 women when they are at work? That means that, first of all, these are people who provide services. These are people who design systems that are going to respond to climate change. And so if we have below average kind of representation of women, that means that the solutions that will be built at the end of the day are not tailored. They don't have a gender lens of women in that particular case. And so achieving climate change becomes something very hard from that end. And in the technical STEM, we have a participation of 28. Installation-related jobs have now dropped up to 22%. So it's really a big gap that when you look at it and you really realize that the chances that we are going to have solutions that are tailored to the specificity of women in that case becomes a much more demanding. So it's very, very imperative that, yeah, we can move to the next step, next slide. It's very, very imperative that we have a sensitization of such kind of nature. So what's the implication of that? The implication of that is to say that the women are going to be missing out on skills, leadership, and innovation pipeline of climate solution. Now, women miss out on crucial skills to help them stay resilient in the face of climate change, and then leave them in a state of frustration. And this frustration spills all over because, again, women are they are the home in literal sense. They stay up with their kids. I mean, they take care of the situation. When climate change has hit, the floods have got into a place, drought, and all of this is evidence. So they miss out on the skills, they don't get represented in the leadership, so they don't be able to make the decisions that are shaped towards them, and then the innovation pipeline of climate solutions. So those statistics particularly are just not they're just not statistics. They reflect the missed opportunities in skills, in leadership, and in innovation pipeline. So you can proceed to the next slide. So it's very, very please, you can proceed to the next slide, Zoha. Yeah. So also when we look at the the SDGs that have been put up. So why gender matters in climate action, the impact on communities. The first thing is to say that studies show that women who lead climate initiatives, on a comparative to men, the projects have a 64% more effectiveness and more sustainable. So if women who have proved it to have effectiveness of 64% more than and then they are left out from the skills. They are left out from leadership development. They are left out from being able to take part in the innovation and tailoring solutions for climate change. That means we have a lot missed out right there. We have a lot of efficiency missed out right there. Women are half of the world's population is not being represented at that level. And in countries with higher numbers of women in parliament, this is evident, have adopted more stringent climate policies. And if you check countries that currently are having great absorbance of the might of climate change and not taking up the nationally determined contributions seriously. It's because the representation of women in those parliaments is really low, and because the women share the greatest brand of climate change, they are then so persuasive and they are very determined to set up these stringent climate policies. So the missing out of women in this kind of systems, in the education system, in the equipping system, becomes something that's very, very important to be checked on. So it's not ideally a charity, it's a means to improve the climate outcomes. And if so happens that there is a more incorporation of women in the gender lens in climate education, in climate skilling, because again the education we're talking about is just not about only the awareness, let alone the awareness level. So taking from awareness to skills development to provision of enabling technologies, these are all routes and pathways to which we can say we have completed, we have got to a complete cycle of climate resilient education, and particularly here gender responsive education. Please, you can proceed to the next slide. So when we look at the climate, the SDG indicators, SDG 5, 13, and 17, some SDGs don't have, they don't have gender indicators. They don't have gender indicators. SDG 5, gender equality. Of course, that's the first one that has the gender inequalities. So to end all forms of discrimination against women and girls, ensure women's full participation in equal and equal leadership at all levels of decision making, and also to enable the use of ICT to promote women's empowerment. So a very important quote here is to say that climate change will test our intelligence, our compassion, and our will, but we are equal to that challenge. Men and women are equal to that challenge. And in any case, when there is a misrepresentation of one of the genders, that then means that our compassion, our will has been compromised at that level, because it's a collective will. So at a level of informing, at a level of skilling, at a level of empowering, at a level of decision making in the boardrooms, that will must be entirely reflected for us to see a realization of SDG 5, and you could then proceed to SDG, the next slide, SDG 13. So whereas SDG 13 does not particularly have gender indicators, UNFCCC and SDG 13 still emphasize gender responsive climate policy. And why that particularly is important is to say we need capacity building of women, we need gender responsive climate education, we need training for education in adaptation and mitigation technologies. And you find out that the local communities where actually the impacts of climate change are much more felt, with very, very little relief, or very, very late relief coming through for them. It's where there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of ignorance about how to develop systems, and especially the women in these rural areas, whether in Asia or in Africa, that's where it's missed so much. So in order for us to realize climate action, which is collective responsibility, it is imperative, very, very imperative to have gender responsive education, climate education. You could proceed to the next slide. So for SDG 17, which is basically partnerships for the goals, that is again very, very central, because we cannot be able to have the entirety of gender responsive education, climate education achieved, that is being able to achieve the climate change goals. It's not possible without partnerships, because at whichever level we all have the capability to enhance this perspective. To say whether you are a student, whether you are an educator, whether you are a working class, or you are a donor, you are some NGO, we all have a responsibility. Whenever we hold programs to train people on climate change, to skill them, opportunities, funding opportunities, are we sensitive to that end? Back then, a year ago, we as students, we organized a briquettes production training. That's in one of the chapters here in Uganda, Student Energy at Kulu University. And so we realized the first turn up, we had a very, very low representation of the females. That was about 30% representation in the training. So we had to take a deliberate action. The next training slots were, because there was a criteria, but the ones who were getting through that criteria were only 30. So we had to change the eligibility criteria such that we could have at least a 50-50 kind of representation. So in order to have this achieved, we need the multi-sector partnerships to support sustainable development and capacity building for developing countries to collect and use this disaggregated, including the gender data. We should be able to utilize it, and at the end of the day, we'll be able to strengthen partnerships and have collaboration. And all this gender disaggregated data are ideally very critical for supporting women in climate innovation. And so everyone has a role to play in that end. So at the very, very center of it, that what you would have to pick from this is to say that whenever we are disseminating information, we need to be very, very sensitive about the gender lens. How many women are represented in your training? How many women are represented in your financing? How many women are represented in your leadership structure? So that kind of gender responsive education will then culminate into the eventual, it will fasten up the process of achieving the goals and SDGs, the entire framework, but particularly climate change. So yeah, you could move to the very last slide. I really want to thank you all for being attentive for this particular session. And I look forward to questions and maybe the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ekesa. We really appreciate your insights on how we can, how much important it is for women to receive responsive and inclusive education in order to shape their future in climate action, and the important role we can play in the representation of women in climate action. Now I would like our participants to ask our speakers some questions if they want to. Please feel free to unmute and ask it, or you can drop it in the chat box. Okay, we have a question. From a youth leadership perspective, what strategies resonate most with a young woman who want to step into climate advocacy but don't know where to start? Mr. Esika and Miss Sabia, if you would like to answer that.
Oh, okay. So the question is to, she's wondering how a young lady who is interested in joining climate advocacy, what she would basically start with.
Yes,
Of
we can
course,
start.
okay. I think I'll share my thoughts on that. So the first thing is to say that it's important that you ground yourself to understand the basics of climate change. And so it's advocacy is not an emotional. Of course, you can utilize emotions along the way, but the very fabric of the persuasion within it is to allow, sorry about my background, it's to ground your advocacy in a statistical background. What I mean in that case is that you need to have really data. You need to have really information. You really need to have evidence of what you're speaking about. Otherwise, it may look like some other opinion of you are presenting on board. So it's important that you're able to visit evidence, be able to read some basic frameworks, get some online materials, and just try to familiarize yourself with the basic terminologies used within and evidences that have the current evidences of climate change, because again you will need to demystify some myths. You will meet some people and they probably don't believe in it. They think it's some kind of a hoax. So for you to be able to counteract that, it means you must have a grounded understanding, an evidence-based kind of understanding, and that will make advocacy much more effective uh, from your end. But it does not necessarily mean that you have to have like a lot of climate science. So I don't think you need to get discouraged probably because you're not doing maybe climate science and much more of a climate related course, but it's just dedicating your time to getting that kind of evidence. And yeah, I think that would be good for a starting point. Thank you.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Zoha, from my perspective, being a woman and working in the climate space, I would like to say, yes, I do second with what's his Ekisa, that if in case you'll have to plunge into a field, you must have the complete knowledge of things first. And for that, if you want to be one of the advocate and if you want to work in the climate space, first and foremost, you'll have to realize one thing, that it's going to be a huge responsibility. Climate Working in the climate space is not something fancy, and it's not frenzying. You'll have to work so wholeheartedly for that, and then you'll have to get the basic knowledge of it first. For that, you'll have to go for some fellowships. You'll have to go for multiple of online and face-to-face physical seminars, webinars, and then you have to collect as much knowledge and as much knowledge product from the people, those who have been already working in this, and then you'll gain the insights from the experiences of those. And afterwards, once you'll be pro in getting the knowledge, you'll be knowing about all the facts and figures, you'll get the ways out of them yourselves. So first, getting a plunge, you'll have to go for any of the fellowship that is going to provide you the direction towards the climate space, and then you'll have to work over that, and then afterwards you'll become the climate advocate. And there are multiple of trainings, there are multiple of sessions, there are multiple of webinars, there are multiple of organizations, those who are offering that. For example, if in case you are from Pakistan, you'll be seeing Skillistan is working so high on this, and by CCC is working so for EcoFriends is working for this, Takalum is working for this. So there are multiple of organizations. There are many of the organizations, I haven't named them yet. EDS, my own organization, we are working over sustainable development goals. We are working over sustainable education, sustainable leadership. So there is a lot of scope as well. But again, to get into something and getting pro, you'll have to get knowledge first, and you have to be very consistent. See, working in the climate space is not a game of a day or so. You'll have to keep on doing the things on daily basis. Little smaller steps, they are going to make the larger impact afterwards, but your consistency, your try again, try and error method, each and everything that counts. So it's going to take a lot of energy of yours, but if in case you are consistent and you are ready to just invest your energies in the climate space, there is nothing that can stop you. And all the people, those who are working here currently, they are also human beings. So never underestimate yourself by the knowledge of somebody, because for sure that person might be working for more than 10 years or 5 years, and you'll be the newbie here. So obviously there'll be a huge gap between the knowledge product of both. But still, when it comes about learning, it's learning on daily basis. You can learn about the facts. You can learn about all the examples. You can learn about all the, authentic examples as well. And you can learn about all the terminologies too. So once you'll be getting it, you'll be just doing your work too. And you'll be getting the chances as well to show up afterwards. Right? I hope I'm clear.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Um, we have another question. What type of training should be provided to women from low-income households to build resilience against climate shocks so that they're prepared?
Yes. For this, first of all, they should get the basic awareness of their basic human rights. That being females, what rights do they have? Right? And then the basic drills. Females are being catered in underdeveloped countries as a very weak creature who cannot do a lot of things. On the contrary, they are practically doing a lot of things than males. They are carrying buckets which are very heavier for water from one place to another. They are traveling on foot for so longer distances. They are doing a lot of things. Fine. So we should give them the proper training first to escape from such a situation, then the proper rescue trainings at home, the proper first aid trainings to them, right? The CPR, each and everything should be provided to those. And then when it comes about the other methods, they should know how to use the weapons. They should know how to uh, swim. They should know how to drive. They are the basic skills they would be knowing. Being the house maker, there are many things still they can complete and they can learn at their houses. So there is no obstacle when it comes about learning. And being the advocate of the women empowerment, we should know that where we have to tell them and how we have to tell them in the easier ways so they may learn it more and they may do it practically as well afterwards. So we can go door to door in the villages and provide them with the stuff and with the trainings in their homes, so that if in case, God forbid, such a situation occurs, they know how to rescue themselves as well as their children and the other people, those who are around. I hope I'm clear.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for your insights. You answered both the questions in such a great way and clear way. Um, Together today, we explore the powerful intersection between gender and climate action with the help of real world examples and with the insights of our expert speakers. Um, as I conclude today's session, I extend my sincere appreciation to our speakers, to our participants who contributed in this meaningful session today. Your presence and insights have helped us illuminate the woman role in climate action and sustainability. And I hope that we um, use these insights in our practical life as well and become a better person for our environment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zoha, for inviting for such a marvelous session and awareness raising session as well. I hope that we are going to have the multiple collaborations in the future too.